Welcome back to the Me and Jesse podcast, everybody. I am Mark Pavlich. Across from me with the weird hat on over there, that is Jesse Martineau. And all the way from Singapore, my dear friend, the voice, Michael Schiavello.
How you doing
Mark,
tonight?
it's so good to see you again. It's been such a long time. And Jesse, great to see you.
Yeah, we're so excited. I mean, we remember like the MFC days. And before I even knew Mark, and knew that he owned the MFC, you were the voice that we all heard when the embassies were going on. And I just remember the thing, "Good night, Irene," when someone went to sleep on the canvas. So
yeah, and you know, many people went to sleep on that MFC canvas back in the day. I remember at the River Creek Casino, we put many people to sleep. There were many good night Irenes, but they were great memories. I used to love going to Edmonton to do those shows.
how did you and Mark meet? Like, how did that connection happen?
You know, just through HDNet, which became Access TV, of course, at the time. HDNet had the contract to do MFC shows via Mark Cuban, of course. And so I think the first time I ever met Mark was in Edmonton before one of the shows in one of the lobbies of the hotel we used to stay at, where we interviewed the fighters. And I remember the guys from HDNet telling me, "You're going to meet Mark Pavlich, and he's a little bit of a different character to what you're used to. Let's just say he's not shy, he's not retiring, and he can be very in your face." And I like that because Mark was always full of personality and larger than life. And he brought that personality and infused it into the shows. And I think that what MFC was, besides being some of the best fighters in the world on those shows, giving us some of the best fights we've ever seen, it also blended Mark's personality into the show. And I think that's what made MFC such a success for so many years.
Now, obviously we have Dana in the UFC, but is there really the other kind of like Mark or Dana's out there that are really promoting? Because Bellator almost seems like it's missing a little bit. What other guys do you know of that are like can do the same thing?
Well, you know, I'm working at One Championship at the moment, and One Championship is just a juggernaut. You know, as far as viewership goes, they're the most viewed mixed martial arts organization on the planet.
Wow.
That's Nielsen rated, on TV. I mean,
That's a
when we
fact.
did our that's a fact. When we did our Century show in Japan, we had 81 million just on television. Nielsen rates us the fourth most watched sports organization on the planet as far as digital views go, 6.4 billion digital views per year. And that just came out a couple of months ago. So although a lot of people in the West may not be aware of it, over here in Asia, One Championship is an absolute monster. And the man behind that is a guy called Chatri Sichitong, and, you know, a martial artist himself, a Harvard graduate, and a lifelong martial arts fan, and a guy that just knows what he's doing and gets it done.
I love seeing that, Michael, that you ended up there because, you know, when you look back in history and time, that was always a big thing with me, even when I owned the MFC. I don't have a problem with the UFC, and I never really did. It was a make-believe problem. Yeah. Like I like, and you'll see even today on the show, like I'm very different than the person that owned the MFC. That was a character that I created because if it was up to me, I would sit in a room by myself most of the time and enjoy watching. Like just, it's a long story, but most people don't know that, but my dear friends do know. And I had to create a character to be that. So I always put a beef with me in the UFC, which never really existed. But the funny part was, people used to always say, like, hey, what would be the perfect dream team of commentators for an MMA show? And people would always ask me that on the down low. And I would say, well, I'm a big fan. I would because you have to have the characters. So I'd put Schiavello with Joe Rogan, right? Mm-hmm. And then I would need someone like, but you can't put a John Anik in there with you because then there's too much, right? So you have to put almost someone that's a little bit downplayed, like a Goldie, you know, that's with Bellator, because your personality could take over the whole stage. And that's not even your fault. That's just the way it is. Like, you're not even trying to do that. It just, here it comes, you know, like here it comes. Like, it's so funny because I would walk down the street sometimes in my own city and people would yell to me, "The big Kamash!" And I'd be like, "Whoa, what's going on over there?" Right. And then I would be in Las Vegas. Here's me from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I would be in Las Vegas walking through the lobby with my wife, and someone would yell, "Good night, Irene." And I'd be like, whoa, like, because it was associated with the MFC at the time. And that's what happened. And so for you, if you were looking at, and I don't want you to put down anybody that you work with now, but if you were to put together the perfect dream team cast for ONE FC or for any other show in the world, who would it be, Michael?
I got to agree with you. I would have loved to have commentated or commentate with Joe Rogan. And I think that's the one that most fans for years have said that I would have loved to have gotten, Rogan, Schiavello on a show, just because I bring that exuberance, that over the topness, along with my knowledge of striking, and Joe brings his intense, incredible knowledge of all facets of mixed martial arts, and we've got that edging comedy as well. And actually, Mark, I do have you to thank for introducing me to Joe many years ago for the first time, because it was after a MFC show at the River Cree.
That's
when
right.
Scott Zur and yourself organised a dinner with myself and Joe Rogan after Joe's comedy show. And we met, and after that, Joe and I became great friends, and we still chat. And I've been on his podcast a couple of times. We stay in touch. And Joe's always said over the years, the one person that he likes the most as a commentator is me, and I've always said the one person I like the most as a commentator is him. So we're like two ships, passing in the night. We never got the chance to work together. But I think
it needs to get collide at one time in history, because you have to think too, like, people said, oh, it's easy, you're gonna have Schiavello on the show, you must know everything about him, Mark. And I'm like, no, I don't. It's funny, I had my father on the show one time because my father's in the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame, and I had to study for him like I had to study for you, right? Like, I don't know why people think like I know the intricacies of every human being in the world. In fact, if I was interviewing myself, I'd have to study for myself as well. So
let's go. Well, let's go back then. Let's start. Let's talk about you, Michael. Let's talk about how this all started. Like, we know the height that you're at now, but we know that this story started back as a 16-year-old in Australia. Why don't you unfold that for us? And so how did you get from there to here?
Now, I'll tell you what, to be honest, when I was growing up, all I ever wanted to be was an architect. That was my lifelong goal. I love drawing. I love designing houses on, charcoal pencils, and I wanted to be an architect.
Yeah.
And in Australia, when you hit year 10, so you're 15 years old, you've got to write away to do work experience somewhere. So I wrote away to about 20 architecture firms in Melbourne, and to my surprise and my dismay, none of them wrote back to me. And I remember crying to my mum in the driveway at our house after checking the mailbox, again, unsuccessfully, saying, Mum, none of these places are accepting me for work experience. What am I going to do? And, mothers are strange in their wisdom and their prophetic, their prophetic wisdom. My mum said to me out of nowhere, you've got a good voice. Why don't you do radio? I was like, what? Radio? Like, I want to be an architect.
Had you ever thought about that before?
No, never in my life. So she wanted me to write away to a news radio station she listened to, but I said, forget that. I'll write away to an FM station I enjoyed listening to. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, they sent me a letter, and I still have that letter. And it's dated April 10, 1990, my birthday.
Wow.
They accepted me for work experience. And guys, as soon as I went in that radio studio, all idea of becoming an architect vanished from my mind. All I wanted to do was broadcast media, and that's how it started for me.
How old were you then?
15, just maybe 1990. So I just would have turned 16.
Okay, so then what did you do for them? Like, because they say, oh yeah, come on in. What were you like?
Yeah, they said come on in, and I remember this lady called Deanne Sloan was in charge of the work experience kids, and she looked me up and down, and she said, what do you want to do in radio? And I had no idea, because I still wanted to be an architect. And she said, well, I've got a good feeling about you. I'll stick you in the newsroom with our journalists. So they put me in this little newsroom with all these monitors and microphones jutting out of the wall. And I fell in love with it. I'm just like, this is broadcasting. This is live radio. This is so cool. And then after I did my work experience, I kept going back there every school holidays to get more experience. I joined my local community radio station, started hosting a Sunday morning sports show, started doing a little commentary for them, a little commentary at high school as well, doing some track and field that led to soccer commentary. And then when I was 1994, I got a call from a local kickboxing promoter in Melbourne. So I wasn't even 20 years old, begging me to commentate one of his kickboxing shows, because he'd heard me commentate soccer on radio and really enjoyed my passion. And I said, I have no idea how to commentate kickboxing, but he begged and he begged and he begged, and eventually I did it, found I had a talent for it. One thing led to another. One promoter heard it, another one heard it. Pay TV came to Australia. Fox Sports came to Australia in 1996, I think it was. asked me to do it for them. I was 21
Wow.
years old, and that was it. I was off and running.
Wow.
But you skipped over Pele and Diego Maradona though. You missed that one because
Yeah. I was.
because come on, like how old were you when, like, come on, man, like if
you
you're,
landed
if
like
you're 16 years old and you're interviewing Pele and Maradona, like how did that even happen? Like that's so hard to understand.
So I was doing that Sunday morning sports show, a local community radio sports show, 88.3 Southern FM, 16 years old. And, I wanted to do something different. And that's just me. I want to do big. And I think, Mark, you can relate to this. When you do something, you want to do it big time, not just run of the mill, So I said to the producers of this little show, I'm going to go out and find celebrity athletes I can interview. So when the tennis players would come to town for the Australian Open or the cricketers would come to town for the World Series, I'd hunt them down at their hotels. I'd stalk them out in the lobbies of the hotels.
Wow.
I'd track them down. Pele came to town. I tracked him down. Maradona came to town. I tracked him down. Stefan, Edberg, Gabriela Sabatini, Sachin Tendulkar. All these guys came to town.
Goran Ivanisevic, I've seen too. You interviewed.
Ivanisevic. I love Goran. He was fantastic. Arancha Sanchez Vicario. Richie Richardson. A lot of them. And I was ringing hotels. There was no internet back then. Finding out where they'd stayed, changing my voice, faking my age. And you know what? If you've seen the movie Almost Famous,
very similar.
Similar. Yeah, very similar. My life back then was really, really similar to Almost Famous.
Wow. That's incredible. So there's another skill set there besides being a commentator. Like you were hustling and grinding to get what you needed for the show.
Big time. I was grinding to no end, and God bless my mum that she was my taxi back then. I was 16 years old, and I'd be like, Mum, can you drive me to this hotel? Mum, can you drive me here? Can you drive me there? And she'd wait outside the hotel, and I'd go inside and record a half-hour interview with some famous sporting celebrity, and all hours of night I'd be on the phone ringing around. So I was grinding, and I guess I get that from my parents. My dad was the hardest worker that I ever knew. He was an immigrant factory worker who made shoes and was up early and home late every day.
Wow.
And so I learned that work ethic from him, and it's still a work ethic I try to instill in my kids and to people I talk to when they say, what's the secret to your success? And I'm like, there's two things really. A is you've got to be passionate and enthusiastic. You really have to be. You can't get anywhere without those two things. And secondly, you've got to work for it. Nothing is ever handed you on a silver platter.
Yeah, that's great advice. So you go through this process, you discover your love for martial arts. What was it that you decided, like, this is where I'm going to hone in now on this sport? Because I think soccer would be like, to me, like, if I was there, like, soccer would be the thing to do. But
honestly, soccer was the thing to do. That was where I wanted to go originally, because it was my first love as a sporter. I still love soccer. It's still my favorite sport to watch. But life puts you in a certain direction.
Yeah.
I guess for me, what made me fall in love with kickboxing and combat sports was, I can remember the date exactly, December 6, 1992.
Wow.
It was very famous heavyweight kickboxing fight between Dennis Alexio and Stan the Man Longanides.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And I interviewed Alexio a couple of days before in his hotel room. Again, stalked him, hunted him down, found where he was staying. And, Alexio was a major star back then. He had just started kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme. He was a larger-than-life figure, the greatest heavyweight kickboxer in history. And here I was back then as a 17-year-old interviewing Dennis during my school holidays. And we got a house on fire, and he was so nice to me, and he invited me for lunch afterwards. And I was like, holy cow, this is like having lunch with, Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, royalty.
He fights George Foreman. I was just besotted. So I fell in love with it. And there wasn't a moment that a Christmas or an Easter that went by for years after that Dennis didn't ring me to say hello.
Wow.
And I guess that was that's where I fell in love with kickboxing and combat sports.
Wow.
So when I got invited to commentate it a few years later, and I had a good knack at it, found my niche in commentating, I was just like, I love the sport. And I think what drew it to me, guys, and Mark, you can appreciate this, was the characters.
Of
I
course.
grew up loving professional wrestling. That was my pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So I could find my own version of pro wrestling characters in the world of mixed martial arts and kickboxing.
Would you consider yourself a broadcasting geek? Would you? because I see how you study, right? And I think there's some people that are in broadcasting and they're like they do it their way, but I think that you're like, and when I say geek, I mean that in the most respectful way. I hang out with mostly geek people that know how to be creative and all that kind of stuff, and they're my favorites. So what I'm saying is do you put yourself in that category?
I do, especially when it comes to commentary.
Yeah.
I just wrote a book that just came out a month ago called
Yes.
The Commentators. So
Yes.
I think you're going to geek out pretty hard if you're going to write a book about a certain topic.
Good, though.
I just love commentary. I'm the type of guy who will listen to sports and watch sports I don't even like just to hear how the commentators do their job. I drive around in my car at home and I listen to the horse racing channel on radio. I have zero interest in horse racing. I do not gamble. I don't bet. I know nothing about horses, but I've got the most respect for horse race callers because I think their job is unbelievable. And I like to learn what different commentators do. So I guess when it comes to commentary and refining my art and knowing and working out how I can do it better, because that's another thing, guys. It's when you're in a job for so long, you've always got to be better than you were last year or last week.
Yeah.
You can't, you don't want to remain stagnant. I see it with too many people and too many things. And I especially see it with interview shows and podcasters and the like, in that their shows don't change over the years because they don't challenge themselves to be any different or any better. They rest in their laurels and think, well, this is it. This is good enough. Well, for me, good enough is never enough. You always want to be better. So in answer to your question, Mark, I am a geek when it comes to commentary because I'm always wanting to improve.
What is the philosophy you have with your style, and how did you come up with that? Did it come quickly, or was that something you've developed and are still developing?
You know what? That style was there from the very start. The first thing I ever commentated was track and field. When I wagged school one day to commentate track and field at Olympic Park in Melbourne when I was 16, and they didn't know anything that I was potentially a good commentator at the time. So they gave me a throwaway race to commentate, like the 3,000 meters or something like that, some boring race. It turned into the race of the day. And in the finish line, 2 or 3 guys are going down the finish line, looking like it's going to be a very close call. And as they pass the finish line, I yell out, "Good night, Irene." Wow. And it sort of just came out of nowhere. I didn't have it pre-rehearsed.
Wow.
And I did it again when I started commentating fight sports, and it sort of just stuck. And it was just myself coming across on the microphone. But and again, it goes back to what you were saying before, Mark. It wasn't really me. It was an alternate version of me.
Yeah.
It was a character that came out. Because if you meet me, guys, I'm not the social person at all. I'm the complete opposite to Bas Rutten. All right, you put Bas Rutten in a room with people, and Bas Rutten controls that room. Controls that room. You put me in a room with people, and I'm in the corner.
Yeah.
I'm in the corner.
We're all like that.
And it's,
all
we
three
go
of us.
to a function.
Unless we're told to be the show.
Exactly. Right?
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I spend a lot of time by myself. I like to go to the cinema by myself on the road. I hang out reading books by myself. I'm just that sort of guy. But when I put the green light goes on air for the television, I become a different beast, a different animal. And so, that part of me, I was able to explore and still am able to explore through commentary. And I love it. It's like a Clark Kent Superman thing or a Bruce Banner Incredible Hulk thing.
Do you get bored though in it? Like, is there times that you get like a little like, oh, it's the same thing over and over again? Or is it always that new feeling?
It's always that new feeling because no 2 nights at the office are ever the same. I never know what's going to happen. And people always used to ask me, commentating on Access TV and doing regional shows, did you ever get bored with it? Because these were guys that had 1, 2 fights that nobody knew of. You weren't commentating big names. And I was like, no, I didn't, because to me, I was able to help to build their characters. Yeah. And I never knew what I was going to see. And a lot of these guys would fight with more zest, more zeal than a lot of the big names who were just dialing it in and collecting a paycheck. So for me, and I was given so much creative scope at Access TV as well to pretty much say whatever I liked, that I just enjoyed running with it, and it was some of the best times ever.
Some of your sayings, say out of the 100 catchphrases that you have, but that I can repeat probably half of them off the top of my head because people have yelled them at to me over the years. Did you write those down prior, or did they just pop in your head? Did some of them just pop in your head, or were those all kind of planned?
You know what? Some of them were planned, but I'd say the majority of them definitely just popped out of my head. I mean, you can't
awesome.
script any of this stuff, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That's
Yeah.
what I figured.
and-
Yeah.
Sometimes, and a lot of most commentators do it. We pre-script what we call headline comments.
Yes.
So before I do a one championship show, I'll go through all the main fights, and I'll see a particular story or a particular athlete that I think, well, if that athlete wins by submission or by knockout, I can say this line, not because I want to sound cool, but because that line will truly encapsulate that victory for that athlete better than any line I could probably think of on the spot. But also, I know that line can then be replayed on the highlight reels for our news services, for our packages for years to come. So it's very important. So a lot of commentators do this. So a lot of the famous lines you've heard throughout history have been pre-scripted.
Right.
So for Access TV, I do it more now for one championship, I have to admit. For Access TV, though, which is when I was doing MFC and those shows, a lot of it was on the fly. Only a little bit of it was pre-scripted, but I do it a lot more now.
So what
isn't the main guy from 1FC originally from Edmonton, Alberta? There was a guy.
He still is. I was chatting to him yesterday about you. His name's Victor Queen.
I don't know him. Like, it's weird. People tell me all the time. They're like, he went to the University of Alberta. He's from Edmonton, Alberta.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's impossible. Like, how don't I know this person?
Well, we were talking about you yesterday, Mark, because I said, hey, I had a coffee with Victor here in Singapore, and he just landed yesterday. And I said, how's Edmonton? He was telling me how it is up there. And I said, hey, do you know Mark Pavlich? I'm going to jump on Mark's YouTube podcast show tomorrow. And he goes, you know what? I know Mark did the shows at River Cree, the MFC, and did really good shows, and a lot of people know him in Edmonton. He goes, I've never actually met him. So he said the same thing. So I think we're going to hook you guys up for a coffee one day.
And I never heard anything bad about him. I always hear
great guy.
I always hear super positive stuff about him, and it's like everybody that I know that knew him or knows him always talks nice about him. So that's a good thing.
Well, I don't know if you.
I'll return the favor. You hooked him up with Joe Rogan one day. I'll hook you up with Victor Queen.
Excellent. Good. I don't know if you know this, Michael, but Mark and I recently commentated a show. A fight show.
Hold on, Mark Pavlich did commentary.
I had to drink about 9 gallons of coffee. These people asked me to do it, and I said I've never done commentary for boxing ever. It was on Fight TV, and then they offered us a bunch of money, and I said if you offer us this much money, I'll basically wash your car or whatever. I don't care. Like, it has to be a large, because if I'm going to prepare to do this, because I don't know how to do it, I try to explain. Like, people think, oh, because I know about MMA or I know about boxing, I can commentate it. I used to tell people, just like I can referee a MMA event. I said I cannot referee an MMA event. I know how to promote an MMA show. That's my gift. But it's so funny because they kept calling us and they said, we want the guys from the podcast, because they saw another show do it with 2 guys from a podcast commentate. So Jesse and I did it. And ironically enough, preparation wins most of the time, because we overly prepared. We interviewed every fighter. We went crazy, and we did it.
So I've got to ask, what was the relationship between you two behind the microphone calling a show? Who was the play-by-play? Who was the color? Or did you mix it up?
We mixed it up.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically I was the play-by-play and he was the color. So, and I guess that's one of the things that, thinking about, because you watch so much sports, and this is what I noticed. And we're fine live. We can talk live, and we know how to talk. We could do a show. We even did a pre-show, and it's great. It's our element. But when you start watching a sport and you have to portray what you're seeing verbally,
correct,
it is a completely different idea. Yes. Because when you watch, you think differently than and then you have to verbalize what you're seeing. So that was obviously the big learning curve, and we both knew that going in. Like, we haven't done this, so we're not. What about
the reaction?
Sure.
What about the reaction?
The reactions, we went crazy.
When people were getting slapped, like they got knocked out, it was like we were like, I turned into a fan and forgot I was on television. I was like standing up, yelling and screaming, going, "Oh my God, he slapped him! He slapped him!" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm on TV. I forgot." Yeah.
It's a whole different kettle of fish commentating it, And I think a lot of people don't realize this, how fast you have to be. Yes. Calling the action, because it's spontaneous.
Yeah.
And I was told by a friend of mine many years ago, and I'll name drop her here, Danny Minogue, one of the half of the famous Minogue sisters. Mm-hmm. She said to me, because we're good friends, she goes, Michael, one good thing about your job is the chances are you'll stave off or maybe never suffer from dementia, because commentating, you're always working out your brain.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
Your brain operates so fast in milliseconds to call every piece of the action, but not only call it, you've got to do so in an informative and entertaining way. And then you've got to listen to your producer and your directors in your ear, giving you instructions on when to throw to this, when to throw to that. You've got to gauge the fight, when to lift
Mark
the
didn't
pace,
like
when to
that
drop
part.
the pace.
No.
So much. Yeah, there's so much happening, right?
I think it's hilarious because they called us back and they said, "Hey, you guys want to do it again?" And I'm like,
wow.
And I was like, "Are you serious? Like, are you serious?" And they're like, "Yeah, you guys are really good." And I'm like, "Do you understand? We don't know what we're doing. Like we're not." Like I would never claim, like, that's one thing I know my role in life. I'm not a sports commentator, but I can call a fight and I can tell you all the moves of fighting and I can tell you exactly what everything is. But I'm actually going to watch it as a fan, going crazy when someone gets knocked out. I can't stop myself. When people get knocked out, even in the MFC back in the day, I thought it was funny. And I think it's funny when someone gets knocked out. And like, I know other people in the world are like, "Oh, you shouldn't say that." Like, when I see a guy get like Frankensteined, and I think it's hilarious. So I portray that on the microphone, and fans were like going, "That's awesome." But then there's other people that go, "Hey, you shouldn't do that." Right. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. This is how I react to people. Like, I've been around this my whole entire life. Like,
you have to enjoy it. And the thing is that if that is your natural reaction to enjoying it, you've got to let that come through on the broadcast. Man, people have been almost TKO'd, almost out on their feet, wobbling, and I make chicken noises, because they're doing the chicken dance. But that's just me reacting to it. And I'm having fun with it. And if you're too handcuffed, and if you put too many restrictions on yourself, you're boring. And no one wants a boring commentator. And there's so many of them out there because they think you've got to be conservative, you've got to walk the line, you've got to be handcuffed. It's like, no, just let your enthusiasm shine through and your natural character come out, because that's what we want sitting at home. We want to feel like we're with someone who's enjoying it as much as we are.
So let's break this down, because I when you're at a live sporting event, you don't get the luxury of having commentations. Like, you are there and you just hear the things going on. Personally, I prefer watching sports on TV because of all the analysis and all the talking that goes along with it. But, you think back to radio days, and there was a reason why there was commentating, because we couldn't see anything. What is it that we see now that we have to also hear someone else talk about it rather than just watching it? Why do we do that?
It's a very good question. I think it's a few things. First of all is information. I mean, we're living in an age where we crave information.
Yes.
And so not only do we want to just watch our favorite two teams or our favorite two athletes in a tennis match or a boxing match or whatever it may be, we want to know all about them. We want to know if they have any injuries. We want to know what their personal life is like. We want to know their mindset. We want to know what possibly they are thinking, which is where we leave it to the experts in their analysis, So we want information. And also, I guess, in this day and age with betting being such a big part of sports as well, we need that information, to reliably be able to place our bets and win our bets. For those of you out there that gamble, personally, I don't. Also, I think it's part of entertainment. I mean, NFL many, many years ago tried a commentator-less match, where they played a football game, they broadcast without commentators. It was, and what they did was they filled the screen with statistics and more
disaster.
And it was an absolute disaster. They microphoned the field so they could hear the players, and then at halftime they figured out the players aren't actually saying match, and it was a disaster. It never happened again. So people want to hear a commentator tell them the story, right? It's a storytelling thing. Why should I care about watching these two teams? Why should I care about watching these two guys fight? Okay, there's the story. Now I know why Mark's going to fight Jesse. Now I know the story behind it. Now I'm emotionally invested in it.
Yes.
And now, because I'm emotionally invested, give me all the information. And when you go to a live event,
it's true.
That is only replaced by the buzz you get of being around, 20,000, 30,000 people. If you're inside an empty stadium, which I have been for the past 18 months, as a fan, you wouldn't get that same buzz. So, you need those ingredients on TV and, of course, on radio.
How has that been without fans for you as a comment? Do you really notice when that's going on, or can you go through that?
At first, when one was the first sports event, full stop, to do a closed door show back in February of last year when the pandemic really hit. And we took a big risk and we did it. And it was weird because, especially for me, I've got that loud voice. So to be so loud and have a whole empty arena
They can hear
reverberate
you.
with my voice, and
Yeah.
the fighters and the trainers be able to hear me was kind of weird.
It is
But
weird.
now just sort of used to it, and having to tell my co-commentator, don't do the golf commentary. Just pretend that we've got a full audience here and just get excited as usual. Turn your volume up in your cans a little louder to hear yourself louder, and turn the director's voice up louder, and you just got to go with it, And I think we've got the hang of it now. It didn't take me too long at all, but I know that other guys struggled with it. Ron Kruk doing UFC Fight Pass, doing LFA, him and Pat Miletich, they struggled the first couple of times. I remember Ron telling me, and I interviewed him for my new book again, and Ron saying, when he started commentating empty arena shows in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, they were doing whispering commentary because the fighters were right in front of them, and they didn't want
could
the
hear
fighters
it.
to hear what they were saying.
Yeah.
But then
Right.
after a couple of shows, they're like, we can't do this. We've just got to let it go. And he goes, it's almost a bonus now for the fighters to have Pat Miletich, a UFC Hall of Famer, there cage side, and they can actually hear what advice Pat's giving them. But it's all part, it's all part and parcel at the moment. It's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
You can't hold back.
That's interesting too. I love that.
Does anybody ever yell out in Australia in your neighborhood, "Hey, Mr. Scoop, what's up?"
Jeez, I haven't heard that name. I haven't heard that name for a long
I study.
You
It's on your
do,
Wikipedia
you
page,
do your
too.
research.
I study.
Jeez, that's a nickname I got when I was, you do study.
kid.
When I was
You're
like
a kid.
17 years old. Yeah,
Yeah.
16 years old. Local paper did a story on me and called me Mr. Scoop. And you know what? I've always enjoyed two things on air. I've always enjoyed commentating and interviewing. And unfortunately, over the years, having done the Voice Versus show on Access TV for so long, that I got to interview people like Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Steven Seagal and Dana White and Joe Rogan, Michael Jai White, Dan Gable. The list goes on. And other people I've met and interviewed like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Jackie Chan and some people I've always admired and wanted to interview. And they say there's always a big risk in meeting your heroes.
Right.
And fortunately for me, most of the people I've met have been fantastic.
What do you do about the interview part of it? Because do you study a lot, or is there really want to have a deep
research like hell? So when I did a Voice Versus on Access TV, if I did the Voice Versus Hulk Hogan, 2 weeks before I would go on Amazon, I would buy every book I could find on Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
I would go on YouTube. I'd watch every interview I could on Hulk Hogan, and then I'd sit there as I was watching them, as I was reading the books, and write out potential questions. And I would want to know what questions people had asked, so I didn't ask the same questions as everyone else.
Exactly.
And then I'd probably have like 100 questions 2 weeks out, a week out from the interview, that I'd have to cull to 50 that I'd take on set. And then that 50 questions, I'd probably end up asking 25. So I'd have to prioritize those 50 into my top 25, and then those 25 prioritized into my top 10. And it was just a whole process. But the intense research for the Voice Versus was weeks, absolute weeks.
Wow, that's incredible.
How's the traveling on your family? The traveling, because you were in Las Vegas, right? Cuban moves you to Las Vegas. Then you stay in Vegas for a long time, and then basically now you went back to Australia, but now you're in Singapore. So your business is you're kind of it's a weird thing because your family's in Australia, you're in Singapore, and the traveling and all the traveling, but you move everybody with you, right?
No. So the family stays in Australia. Now I fly out of Australia around Asia, but I'm stuck in Singapore at the moment because Australia's got crazy quarantine rules in place at the moment, that every time I go back, I've got to do 2 weeks of hotel quarantine. I've done 17 weeks of hotel quarantine since October of last year. So more than 4 months in my life stuck in a hotel room with no place to go. Seeing that one's got shows every 2 weeks between now and December, there's no possible way to go home and quarantine. So I'm stuck here in Singapore, which means my wife is back home in Melbourne with our 2 boys, a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, doing the homeschooling and doing the hard yards back there. But, she's a trooper, and I've always traveled all the time that I've known her, and we lived in Vegas together, of course, and I was traveling every weekend while I was there. So she's known no different. And she's an amazing woman. And like I said, an absolute trooper. And the kids have known no different either. They know that daddy's got to go away for work, and he always comes back. And they get a little sad and upset, and sometimes don't understand when I go away for a long time. But it's one of those things to make a living,
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the final game MMA or kickboxing, or is it soccer?
Mark, I still don't know. A lot of people ask me what I'd still like to do, and I'm enjoying being with one championship. So in the foreseeable future, one championship is where I want to be. Finally doing, big shows that are broadcast to 154 countries. If you say bucket list, what might be a bucket list thing for the future? I'd love to get back into commentating soccer. I'd love to do something like a World Cup or Euro. Do some international soccer. I'd love it. I'd love to maybe do wrestling. I've done some pro wrestling. I'd love to do a WrestleMania one day, or a SummerSlam, or a Royal Rumble. Some big wrestling one day would be bucket list. But definitely,
I'm just writing it down, because when we promote the show, most people don't understand our podcast. Our podcast has a gift. Weird shit has happened on our podcast. When we had Cyril Gann on, I said, Cyril, listen, nobody pays attention to me, not whatsoever. Now, what happens though is, when I say shit like, oh, Cyril Gann is going to be the next heavyweight champion of the world on Twitter, and I tag certain people in on that tweet, mysteriously, Cyril Gann got a title shot. Now he's the interim title champion, right?
Wow.
So I don't know. It has nothing to do with me. And I know that. Trust me. There'll never be a statue.
It's the minus touch of my
There will be no minus touch. Now what happens is this show, what people don't understand is this show plays, it's live, and then when it will play it, Throwback Thursday with Michael Schiavello. Here we go again with Michael Schiavello on Happy Australian Day. And then this day, and it just keeps playing, and it keeps playing. And what happens is, we're going to tag WWE, we're going to tag MLS, we're going to tag World Cup Soccer, we're going to tag all these people into it, because I want to manifest. And you know what's going to happen? One day when you're calling the World Cup, right? You'll say to yourself, how did this happen? Like, I don't remember.
Bloody Mark Cavalry.
No, but that's funny. It's funny. And I had a huge beef with Joe Rogan. Most people do know this. And I had a huge beef with Joe Rogan back in the day, because I used to train Jason McDonald in the UFC, and he was calling Jason McDonald Rob McDonald. And we were at the live event, and Rob McDonald fought in the MFC before, and Jason McDonald was managed and trained by me. So we were in the octagon, and we were walking off, and Joe Rogan kept calling him Rob McDonald. And I said, Joe, his name is Jason. And he's like, okay, no problem, Jason. The next UFC came around, he called him Rob McDonald again. And I turned back, and I said, Joe, what the F is wrong with you, man? His name is Jason McDonald. And Joe got mad, right? So it went on for a while, but Joe was mad, like mad. Like, he was online telling everybody, oh, Mark's an asshole, blah, blah, blah. So one day we're in Atlanta, Georgia, and my son says, Dad, why do you want to carry a beef with him for so long? Just send him over a bottle of wine and let's be done with it, right? So my son, he is the Switzerland of the family. I send him over a bottle of wine. He comes into the UFC. I'm there that day, and he goes, listen, Mark, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that about you. And the rest is history. Right. So Joe has an empathetic heart. He always has. I know people can say whatever they want, but when we were at the River Cree that day, same thing. He shouted me out during his live comedy show, and he doesn't need to do those type of things in front of a room full of people. And he's gone on to do great things. And how funny it'll be one day when there's UFC 500 and we have The Voice and Joe Rogan calling. and guess what? We just figured out there can't be a third person because there's not enough. It would just be too much.
How would they have enough?
It would be too much.
Yeah, just you and Rogan, and the rest is history, because it would be just too much things in the way. The poor person that would be the third would not get a word in edgewise.
Not one word. Not one word.
Yeah.
It was hard enough commentating with Bas Rutten. Remember those days?
Yeah. Boss,
right.
And Boss is great, but Boss is like, he's weird when it comes to fighting, because here's another news flash I told everybody why 90% of the UFC is not knocking down Bas Rutten's door. I have no clue why. They think that he's old. They think, oh, he's from the past. I brought Bas Rutten to Calgary one time for an MFC. This is in his drinking days. We got hammered the night before. We go to a gym the next day. He literally he's wearing a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. He takes his t-shirt off and literally kicks the shit out of the whole gym in a grappling match. And 90% of the guys on the mat were from the UFC at the time. And he was hungover, right? So that's what people didn't understand about Boss. There's some method to his madness, but let me tell you something. He is still one of the biggest and baddest dudes on the planet, even at his age right now. Undisputed.
And the thing about Bas is the sweetest guy you'll ever meet.
Exactly.
And as a commentator, a brilliant commentator. The thing with Bas,
Correct.
because he's got such a large personality, you
Yes.
just have to know how to rein him in as a co-commentator.
Right.
And when you do, like when we were put on the, we commentated the undercard of, I think it was Fedor versus Verdum.
That's right.
Strikeforce many years ago.
Yeah.
That was the first time Bas and I were ever paired together.
Wow.
And I remember the late Darryl Ewald
Oh, yeah.
afterwards saying, "Oh my God, that was the best commentary we have ever had on HDNet, on Access TV, me and Bas together, because I knew how to rein Bas in and get the best out of Bas. And if you can do that, you can put that guy on commentary table anywhere.
How do you do
and
that
he will
mid-
just blow it.
How do you do that mid-show? Or is that
You
something
don't do
work?
it mid-show. No,
Okay.
you do it before show. You sit Bas down, and if you have Bas's respect, then he listens to you.
Yeah.
And you say, Bas, I know you're over the top and you're Bas root and you're crazy, but sorry, I'm the play-by-play guy. My show, listen to me. When I tap you on the leg, you come in. When I wave you in, you come in. When I wave you down, you stop. Okay, when I put my hand up like this to take a pause, you pause. Okay, Michael, let's do it. And that was it. And I knew it. I knew when I would let myself, go down a little bit to let Bas come up. Rather than try to challenge him for airtime, I'm like, okay, time for the voice to take a step down. Let El Guapo come up. And it's that fine balancing act. And we still do it now at One Championship. There's a video that is out online you can watch of when Eddie Alvarez fought against the Korean guy last fight on TNT, and he dropped him. And there's a video behind the scenes of me, Mitch Chilson, and Rich Franklin commentating. And we're standing up at the desk, and you can see me almost like a maestro of an orchestra, the way I'm waving my hand up and down, in and out, going, Mitch come in, Rich come in, Mitch lay out, Rich lay out, everyone pause, everyone go. So it's just like an orchestra, conducting an orchestra. And I think a good play-by-play commentator needs to know how to do that to get the best out of their co-commentators.
So you're directing a show inside of the show.
Inside.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I'm just trying
and
to work
also because the way I commentate is, as you know, Mark, there's not a lot of specific rhythm. A lot of American commentators in particular have a rhythm where they're going to speak like this, then they're going to break. They're going to speak for a bit, then they're going to break. But me, you don't know when it's going to happen. Yeah. So for Mitch Chilson, with one, that was always the hard thing. We've been commentating for 4 years together, but it's always been the hard thing is knowing when Schiavello is going to take that break, and let someone else come in. Right. So Mitch and I formulated a system where I need to either give him a tap on the leg to come in or to point to him to come in, to keep that sort of that flow going. But everyone has a different system. Every commentator works a bit differently, but I've found that's worked the best for me over the years with pretty much everyone.
When is one going to come here? When is one going to come to North America? Because, like you said, nobody. I'm not putting one down in any way. Okay, I want it to be successful because the guy's from Canada and he's from my hometown, like my town here. So I want nothing but success for him. But nobody knows what one is here. Why?
Of course.
Like it's great to say. It's great to say. The most people in the world watch us, and of course, us in North America.
Not in the West.
We're super weird too that way because we think we're the end all of end all here, and there's nothing else in the world that works. Even the NFL, for example, the NFL is the biggest sports in the world, but it's really a North American sport. It's not. No, people actually in England don't give a shit. It's Sunday today, and us in North America, all we care about is Sunday because we watch football and Monday night football. But for some reason, if one can break that line and say, okay, we got this Asian thing all figured out. Let's seep into Europe. We've already seeped into Europe a little bit. Now we went to Australia. Let's get to the East and let's get that happening. Is that a possibility?
A big possibility. And I think you make a really good analogy there because I think that's exactly the way that most people see it is that NFL, I know how big NFL is, having lived in America for 7 years. In Australia, no one cares.
Nobody.
When Super Bowl is on, you maybe get 30 people at the local TGI Fridays watching the Super Bowl, and that's considered a big Super Bowl party.
Wow.
In Australia, no one cares about it. But that doesn't mean it's not the biggest thing. And it's the same with one. One is so huge in Asia, but in America, nobody really knows that much about it. Or in the West, nobody really knows that much about it. In answer to your question, 2022, I believe we will be coming to the USA. Plans are afoot at the moment. We would have been there already if the pandemic hadn't hit.
Yeah.
We would have been there. I can't reveal where we would have been, but we definitely were going to do a show in the US before the pandemic, through that, of course.
Interesting.
But it is going to happen 2022.
That's cool.
Rich Franklin, who is one of the VPs of one, has been in America for the last 2 months talking to the various commissions because we have a global rule set that we use that's different to the rule set UFC uses. But we do have a few cities we are looking at and some very exciting ones indeed. But 2022 it will happen, and we've got a great American roster. You know, guys like Demetrius Johnson and Eddie Alvarez and Sage Northcutt and Gary Tonin. You know, so the basis is there to do a big mega show next year in the US.
I have a really interesting question. So it's mainly in Asia. Why do they have English commentating?
You know what? I think when it comes to English language is the language of the world. So when it comes to broadcasting, so you got to understand that in Asia, most people do speak English as well as their native language.
Okay.
So you go to Manila, you go to Philippines, which is one of our big broadcasters, everyone speaks English. Here in Singapore, everyone speaks English. You know, you go anywhere really. India, everyone speaks English, and there's 1 billion people over there. So some of the countries do also do their native language commentary. I believe we also have native language in Philippines. We have native language in Japan, native language in Myanmar, native language in China. So there's various commentary teams, but all of them do have an English global feed as well.
But I guess if you're going to have the idea of global domination on the mind, you do need to pick that language. You
need English. It's just any sport needs English to be globally dominant. You've got to have English.
But we never hear Dana. We never hear Dana talking shit about one. Never. He'll talk. He'll crack off about Bellator. He'll crack off about Showtime boxing. He'll crack off about the Paul brothers, but doesn't crack off about one.
I'll tell you why.
Please.
There's been no need to.
Yeah.
Because you see, the thing is, Mark, is that a lot of organizations out there they come into business of the mixed martial arts game and they immediately try to position themselves against the UFC. Okay, they immediately try to say, one day we're going to be bigger than UFC. We're going to take UFC's fighters. We're going to sell out this arena that UFC couldn't sell out, etc. And they go head to head with UFC. One has never done that. We have never said we're going to be bigger than UFC. Our aim is to eclipse the UFC. Our aim is to take over America. Never. One Championship's ultimate game has always been, since day one that I've started working here 4 years ago, we want to be bigger than the biggest sports property on the planet. What's the biggest sports property on the planet right now? NFL, EPL, IPL. We want to be bigger than them. That's what Formula One's another big one in Asia. We want to be bigger than F1. They've never said, I want to be bigger. Chatri's never said, I want to be bigger than Dana White. You know, so that's that. You know, why would you? I mean, it's like starting up a soft drink company and saying right away, we're going to be bigger than Coca-Cola.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Makes no sense to do that. You know, but if you start a soft drink company, you know, and you say you want to be the biggest, healthiest soft drink company in the world, okay, then you've got a market you're going after, right? You're not specifically targeting a brand. So I understand if Dana, you know, when Dana talks about a Bellator or some of these other guys that are out there that have positioned themselves directly against the UFC, whereas we never have.
But you think it'll happen when you take a piece and say, oh, we're going to end up in Chicago and we're going to do a big show in Chicago. And then we're going to do a show in New York. And then we're going to bounce to somewhere close to Vegas or Vegas. And then you turn around and you think that's where it comes in.
I don't think so, because I don't think America will be our main landing point.
Yeah.
I think we'll do shows there. We'll probably just start doing one show a year. We might end up doing a few shows a year because we do also have that contract with TNT, of course. But Asia is where One Championship was born. Yeah. Asia is our stronghold. You know, in Asia, we're the big ratings winner over here, and everyone in Asia knows us like everyone in the West knows UFC. You know, you walk around here, people are wearing the merchandise. So
the same level, right?
Yeah, same level. So I don't think it'll get to that point, because if we go that full on in America, I think we risk losing some of that stronghold we have in Asia. You know, so I don't think it'll ever come to that point where week in, week out we are doing shows in the US, trying to compete with the UFC.
Wow. I just read one of your quotes flashed across my screen right now. He says he scored more times than Tommy Lee at a boat party. I started laughing. I said, "Oh my God, which fight did you say that at? What fight did you say that?"
I can't remember. That was just, I don't know, man. That was Access TV. Like I said, you know, working for Mark Cuban.
Oh wow.
Working for Mark Cuban back in the days, you know, Mark. Cuban didn't give two hoots.
He loved you. He loved you, right? Like he loved you.
He did, and
Yeah,
Cuban
yeah.
would go on air himself, and he'd swear. Not that I ever swore on air, but
Yeah.
I could just push things to the limit, and the guys would appreciate. I mean, the Danny Maynard fight. You know, how much did I have fun with the Danny Maynard fight back in the day? I mean, calling that, and that went viral, and just the fun we had with things like that.
Yeah.
We could do that back at Access TV. You know, a much more conservative audience that I have these days, but back then at Access, it was anything goes. It was great.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, we really appreciate you coming onto the show and just
Definitely.
opening up some of the. There's so many really cool areas about this that I'm really interested in now, even after Mark and I do one thing. But I've always been interested because I've always found commentating, as I said, I'd rather watch it on TV than actually go see it live. And so I've always been really interested. I remember we had one guy in Vancouver that did all the Canucks games, Jim Robson, and I bought his book where it had all his notes, like they'd taken pictures of all the notes. It was really cool. Like, so I've always been really interesting. So hearing you, amazing professional, open up about that has been really cool. And I'm sure we need to get the book.
And we
Tell
want
us how
everybody
we
to
get that.
well, we want everybody to purchase the book,
Yeah.
and you can get it on Amazon. That's the easiest place for people, on Amazon.ca in Canada.
Where do you make the most money?
Yeah.
You know, anywhere good books are sold, guys. Yeah, Amazon in Canada is great. Book Depository is another really good one to get it. They do free shipping worldwide.
Oh, cool.
And I tell you, I'm thrilled with the way the books come up. The commentators that are contributing to it. I mean, living legends like Vin Scully. You know,
Oh,
the voice of the
wow.
voice of the
Wow.
Dodgers.
Yeah, yeah.
Vin Scully at 94
Scully,
years
wow.
old is a
Wow.
contributor to the book.
That's amazing.
I mean,
Wow.
that says it all. You know, Tim Neverett, who's the current LA Dodgers World
That's
Series
right.
commentator,
That's right.
contributed to the book.
Wow.
Kathy Rigby, the great Olympian,
Oh,
two-time
yeah.
Olympian,
Yeah.
Kathy Rigby contributed to the book.
Wow.
So it's an international book. You guys will love it. If you're a
Okay.
sports nut, you'll enjoy it. It's called The Commentators, 100 Years of Sports Commentary, and I know you'll love it. And guys, thanks so much for talking today. And please do send me a link of your commentary so I can hear it, because
No.
one of my
No.
dreams. One of my dreams, Jesse, to hear Mark Pavlich
No.
do commentary.
I
So,
don't get it.
Jesse,
My-
I know
my-
you got me, Jesse. You sent me the link.
I'll send it.
my defiance to do it ended up doing it, and then now I'm doing it again. And I said, I
It-
can't
it was
even
fun.
believe it.
It was a
can't
lot
even
of
believe
fun.
it. It was fun, but there's a lot of paying attention involved. And as I get older, not necessary to pay
Yeah,
attention.
being
so
live for
much.
5 hours straight. I mean, that was
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
feel it at the end. You're like,
What
okay,
a
I don't want to
sweat.
talk anymore.
What a sweat,
Yep.
man! Oh my god!
Yep.
Oh my
Yep.
god! It was like that. Was like I. That's why I said I told, and then other people were calling, and I'm like, you guys, this was a joke. Like this was not to be a career. Like I want to have my marketing company, and I don't want to be a commentator. It is such a sweat. Like it is like, oh my god!
It's a
like,
workout. It's a workout.
It
it's
is.
a
It is
workout,
fun.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
not necessary. I like watching fights religiously, but I don't want to like participate or promote. I just want to watch, you know. So-
Well, once again, we thank you so much, Michael, for joining us, and everyone that follow him on all social media. Get his book, and let's watch him win championship. I'm excited to jump in.
But also, too, we have to do this. We have to post at least 50 of the top 50 famous
Yes.
sayings, and they'll be
You're
on
gonna dig out the old
on
MFC
our
reels.
on our Instagram, and on our Facebook page, on the Me and Jesse's Facebook and Instagram pages. We'll be posting at least 50 or so. And listen, I'm telling you, you want
There's
to
more than
laugh.
50.
You no, but I'm saying we'll fit in 50. But if you want to laugh and really see about like this is some super funny stuff, you'll love it. You'll love it.
Guys, thank you so much, Jesse. It's great to meet you. And Mark
too.
Pavlich, my old friend, it is so good to see your face again and
Thank
hear
you,
your
Mike.
voice, guys. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
very much.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much for
Michael. Thank
joining
you,
us
Michael.
tonight.
That's Michael Schiavello, everybody, the voice.
Good
Incredible.
night. Oh, he didn't say it. Dang it.
No, good night, Irene. You know, Jesse, I'm not making this up. I used to walk through a casino in Vegas,
Yeah.
literally, like through Encore or
Good
the
night,
Wind,
Irene.
and people yelled at me, "Good night, Irene." Not my name. Not my
No,
name.
no,
Good night.
yeah.
Good
But,
night, Irene.
but that is actually the really, and that's what I was kind of saying
is.
too,
It is.
is they become the face of the show. Like, yes,
yes.
Mark Pavlich, yes, Dana White,
Yeah,
but
whatever.
Joe Rogan and Michael Schiavello, like they're the face.
Yeah.
They're and really are they're the introductory point of people watching and entering into the sport. So imagine the first time, and I remember, you got to remember, like, I remember the great calls of history of, Dodgers, Gibson's walk-off home run and that kind
Miracle,
of stuff.
What about Miracle on Ice, 1980 Olympic USA
I was
team?
just born in 1980, so I don't remember that one quite well. I was going pretty
Crazy.
far back with the Kirk Gibson home run against the Athletics. I remember crying because I was an Athletics fan. But I grew up with certain commentators and I loved them and loved hearing them and so it is a huge part of sports.
It is
that a lot of people don't really realize until it's gone. And you don't have it, and then you miss it. And you're like, oh man, I wish we had that commentator still. This one sucks, or whatever.
That's why one went after Michael Schiavello.
Yeah, you got to get that
because you have to get him because there's only so many. Hey, it's like F1 driving. There's only so many seats.
Yeah, it's 20 seats.
20 seats in F1 driving.
There's only so many shows.
There's probably like really great drivers that are in F2 that maybe will never even get into F1 because there's only 20 seats. And it's the same thing with this. To be at the level of Michael Schiavello is, how many seats are there really to pay a guy like him? Like between the UFC, ONE FC, Bellator, and that's probably it.
I mean, other sports that could open up, of course, but it's probably harder to become a commentator in a sport than it is to play the actual sport.
You know what, Jesse? I think you're right.
Because there's one.
Think about that, people at home. Don't get mad at Jesse for saying that, because I agree with you 100%, Jesse. Because I think you're right. I think it's harder because there's only that slot. It's like if there was only one pitcher on every base. There's only one quarterback on every NFL team. That plays. So you think to yourself, that's the same mentality. Like that chair that he sits in. Yeah.
But during the NFL day, like for example, today the early set of games had 8 games going. Well, that's maximum 8 commentators plus their color band. That's 16 people to do 8 games. And you're like, well, that's it. That's all we have.
And the Monday nighter tonight is my beloved Raiders. And if they can actually pull out a win,
go 4-0.
Go 4-0. Now, listen to me. I ain't saying nothing. People in Raider Nation, listen to me carefully. Shut up. Shut up. Don't, and I am the godfather.
You don't believe in that, do you?
I am the godfather of Canada's Raider Nation.
You don't believe in that jinxing stuff, do you?
No, I believe in the jinxing stuff like so much that I can't even believe that people are starting to chime in because Derek Carr won the Player of the Month in the NFL.
I'm going with my boy Herbert tonight.
Yeah. Well, there you go, and the kid's awesome.
I love him.
So I love him. So you can't say nothing. You can't say nothing bad, but. Most people are like starting to believe this and whatever, but 3-0 is one thing. But 4-0. Now that's
then you have some room to screw up, maybe.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we all know that 3-0 that's been done.
Well, you also know that you also 4-0, like you almost have to, because the Chiefs got a chip on their shoulder. Losing
they must. But the Chiefs look human, right?
Yeah, the defense is questionable at best.
I watched the game yesterday, and I'm telling you, their defense is shaky. They look super vulnerable.
Offense, obviously insane.
Yeah, insane. But he is throwing interceptions now though, which he never did before. So we'll see what happens. But like you said, we play them twice, and if you could scoop a win from them, great. But I'm not whatever. Tonight's the night. We go 4-0 or we go 3-1. But 4-0 puts us in a different mindset and a different place altogether.
I'm not looking forward to hearing about this if you go 4-0.
No, of course you're not. Just like Denver losing yesterday, and I think the same thing. I think Denver's got a really good defense, but
they do.
And it's the same thing with Seattle.
Offense,
Seattle's game yesterday, same thing. We were watching the game when it started, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, what are they doing? Do they not realize they have DK Metcalf on their team? Do they not realize that? Like, I'm throwing shit at the TV. I'm not even a Seattle fan, but you and my sister are. And I'm looking at you have.
I don't understand the play calling this year whatsoever. I didn't understand it last year either. I honestly think
your offensive line is weak as shit.
It's been brutal for 10 years.
They're soft. They're soft.
Russell Wilson has never had an offensive line.
Never.
Can you imagine that? The fastest quarterback, he did it yesterday, fastest quarterback to ever reach 100 wins in the NFL history.
Yeah.
He's never had someone to protect him.
I'm going to say this out loud on the podcast today.
And he's never missed a game.
If Russell Wilson had the Dallas Cowboys line,
oh my gosh,
he would win the Super Bowl with his left arm.
I can't even imagine what he would have done.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Like, horrible. Soft as shit, that line.
Oh, it's ugly. ugly.
But
ugly.
DK, you got DK Metcalf, and I'm
Hey,
like,
DK.
I'm swearing
Love
at the
DK.
TV, telling Carol,
Get
do you
DK the ball.
realize? Give him the ball.
Throw a jump
Give
ball
him-
to him, please. Just throw a
I don't
jump
care.
ball.
You could throw it anywhere within 25 feet of him.
Yeah.
He's gonna get it.
Yeah.
God.
Well, there's
Holiday.
I mean,
Holiday. Don't
holiday
forget.
next week.
Next week, so we're gonna have a
Happy
replay
Canadian Thanksgiving.
for all you Americans that watch our show. It's Canadian,
It's
Thanksgiving.
The reason
next
we do
Monday.
our Thanksgiving first is so we can get the better turkeys.
Yes.
And give you guys our dirty second turkeys.
The leftovers, the leftover turkeys. Yeah. And then we'll be back the week after live. So.
Well,
Leftover turkeys.
we want to thank our guest Michael Schiavello for joining us tonight.
Fantastic.
What a great guy, and
Awesome. All the way from Singapore.
all the way. Yeah, I called in from Singapore, so make sure you pick up his book on Amazon called The Commentators, and follow him on social media and send him some love because it's really cool. And he's like, people like, again, one championship is not huge here, but it is a big deal.
Oh yeah. It's
It is
a big deal.
So
big deal.
for him to take time out of the schedule is really, really nice of him. So
Yeah.
thank you again for that.
And can you believe the guy that runs it, technically like the
from
main
Edmonton.
guy, is from Edmonton,
And you've
Alberta,
never
Canada.
met him.
Never met him, and I wish him all
How
the
weird
best.
is that?
It's super weird, and I think it's fantastic, and he must be intelligent because they're doing a great job and they're being very successful.
Well, I think in the time it is, he went at it the right way. When you started, like it was like there was an opening, but now you kind of you go through the back doorway
Yeah.
to hit North America. And so it's an interesting play
And he's
on that.
playing the numbers. He's playing the
Yeah.
numbers game because he's over in Asia.
Yeah,
and,
you
and-
got a
and he-
foundation.
huge foundation.
And now
right?
you can start to
Yeah.
push it. It's
Yeah,
interesting. Going to be interesting to see what happens in 2022 with these guys.
It will.
Maybe we're closer to unifying the belts than we have been.
Yeah.
That's Mark Pavlich. I'm Jesse Marno. This has been the Me and Jesse podcast. Most important 60 minutes you spent in the sports world on the internet. Until
Go
next time.
Go Raiders!
Okay, fine. Go Raiders. We'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/Me and Jesse.